Hi there, everyone. Bryan from the Oraculos School of Astrology, and welcome to Mychal Fix My Stars, my new astrology hotline where I help real people troubleshoot real challenges that they face within their lives using the wisdom of astrology.
I would like to find out if I will earn a fair wage for what I'm doing, or a good living from what I'm doing, because I have been of late seriously underpaid. Um, and I am in quite a difficult and notoriously underpaid industry, but I'm at the top of my game, and it's been very hard to live of late on what I earn.
Awesome, awesome. And do you have a time frame surrounding that? Because from your chart, I can say things generally, but do you have a time frame
Yeah,
surrounding this?
I guess within the next year or two, because it's going to get impossible to remain in the work that I do at the current the way that the pay is currently structured because of inflation and so on.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. So let us see, how would I go about this? So, is there a possibility within this as well of a potential career change on your end? So, is that a part of the question? As in, will I make more money in this career or will I have to leave this career in order to make more money?
Oh, I suppose it's probably better couched as, will I make a success of this career that I'm in? Does that help?
It does, as long as you're referring to this
This
present
current
job.
this current career. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, perfect. So the question has to do with whether or not the native is going to make a good earning within the current career that she finds herself in. And the chart information for this is September 29th, 1976 at 10:45 a.m. in Yangon, Myanmar. Yangon, Myanmar. And the ascendant is 12 degrees Sagittarius, 20 minutes. Traditional astrology is a very straightforward endeavor, and when we're looking for answers from a traditional astrological perspective, we usually go straight for the jugular. And the jugular, as far as this chart is concerned, is we want to look at the planet that represents her money within this lifetime in general, which is going to be the ruler of her second house of money. We also want to look at the planet that represents her career. We also want to look at the planet that represents the money that she makes from her career. And clearly, since it's her chart, we also want to look at the planet that represents her. This is a very horary approach to natal astrology, and it's an approach that is very helpful in general as far as natal astrological practice is concerned, because learning horary astrology first is the best thing you can do as far as natal astrology is concerned. I have a natal astrology brain, but I more so have a horary astrology brain because horary teaches you how to see things that natal astrology can never teach you how to see. So anyway, I could go off on a tangent about learning horary astrology first for quite a while, and I'm known for going off on that tangent to the point where I think that people no longer want to hear me talk about it. But the reality is that learning horary astrology first makes this quality of astrology that I'm practicing more possible. And if you want to learn my approach to horary astrology, then I'm the only one who can help you with that. Anyway, moving on. So within this chart, the first thing I would do personally is I want to take a look at the career itself. She has 16 degrees of Virgo on the 10th house cusp. Therefore, her career is going to be signified by Mercury, and Mercury is at 23 degrees Virgo, 29 minutes retrograde in the 10th house. Mercury in Virgo is wonderful. Mercury retrograde, not so wonderful. This can be an indication that she is having a job that has the ability to do very well, and she is having a job that has a great level of internal strength by itself, and it should be doing better than it currently is. I think that's one of the things that we need to realize when we take a look at a chart where the ruler of a particular house is essentially dignified, but also it is retrograde while in that sign. As a matter of fact, I said I was going to interpret this chart like a horary or similar to a horary, I'm actually going to interpret this chart exactly like a horary because we need to just know how to do all of the things. So the reality is that within this chart, she has the Mercury in its own domicile and exaltation. Her career should be doing amazingly. She knows that her career should be doing amazingly. There's nothing within this world that should prevent her career from doing amazingly other than the fact that it's not doing amazingly. And the reason why it's not is because her career is represented by a planet that is in its domicile and in its exaltation, but they're retrograde. Abraham ibn Ezra tells us that a planet, no, he does not. Who says it? Betham, in his Centiloquium, tells us that a planet in its domicile is like a king in its castle. In the 17th century, we find 17th century astrologers telling us that a planet in its exaltation is like a proud man, haughty and arrogant, taking on more upon himself than is his rightful due. Therefore, by every stretch of the imagination, this Mercury should be doing very well. Now, we also see the reality that this Mercury is retrograde. Betham in his Centiloquium tells us that a planet retrograde is like a man infirm, stupefied, and solicitous, meaning that a retrograde planet doesn't necessarily have any of the things necessary to support itself or to bolster itself or to help it to do better within this world. Similarly, we learn in Betham's Centiloquium that a planet in its own domicile and there retrograde is like a sick man in his own home. Therefore, we come back to this very strong set of mental images regarding her career being a sick man in its own home. It is comfortable enough where it is to be doing well, but at the same time, there are things about how it's operating and about how it's functioning that are preventing it from actually manifesting in a good way for her at this moment within her lifetime. So it's not that she's in the wrong profession, it's that within the actual outlay of her specific relationship to this specific profession, there seems to be things within her job that is preventing it from being as great as it can be. And as a result of that, it might also be getting in the way of her relationship to the sort of money that she can make from it. Now, the money that she can make from her career is symbolized by the ruler of the 11th house, because the 11th house represents our hopes, our friends, the fulfillment of our desires, as well as the money that we make from our career. The ruler of her 11th house is essentially debilitated Venus at 3 degrees of Scorpio 40 minutes, accidentally fortified in the 11th house of the money that we make from our career. And this is saying that the money that she makes from her career is in a fundamentally bad state. And that's because the Venus is in its detriment. And a planet in its detriment is like a planet that is actively in a state of ruin, or a planet that is actively in a state of becoming no more. When you are in your detriment, the very lifeblood that you depend upon is being threatened. And here we see Venus representing the money that she makes from her career in a state where the very lifeblood of this Venus is threatened. So it's saying that as far as the money that she makes from her career is concerned, it doesn't necessarily natively look like it is in the best of positions in order to do her the greatest amount of good within this lifetime. So that's something that we want to be mindful of. And it's also something that we should just hold in the back of our mind, that just because you're going through a negative thing at one period of your life doesn't mean that you have to always go through that negative thing. So if you are currently living through a moment where you are at this moment fulfilling your natal promise to be in a career that's manifesting a sort of financial promise that you know isn't going to work for you, then having that wisdom also gives you the freedom to not necessarily do that anymore. If you want to shift gears and go into another career or into another industry, that is completely within the scope of your possibilities to do. And this chart is simply giving you information about one period of your life in which you might have found yourself in a career that couldn't pay you the money that you needed. Now, some people might say, but Mychal, this is her natal chart. Fine, yes, it's her natal chart. And so that means that within this lifetime, this story surrounding some of the pain around not being paid sufficiently enough in terms of my actual career could be something that she finds as a theme manifesting within her life within this lifetime. However, I like to believe that those of us who practice astrology are not negatively affected by the rules of Mazalot. Mazalot is what Abraham ibn Ezra, a Jewish astrologer in the 12th century, referred to as the influence of the stellar bodies. So, as those of us who practice astrology, we need not be negatively affected by the laws of Mazalot because we have the ability to see clearly. Those of us who practice astrology, we're all clairvoyant. And I don't mean that in a woo woo, poltergeist, psychic, clairvoyant, sixth sense sort of way, but we're all clairvoyant from the perspective that we have the gift of clear vision. And the clear vision that we have is we have the ability to step back from our lives to look at the full outline of our lives that our natal charts represent. And as a result of that, it gives us the ability to navigate some of the challenges within our lives with a greater level of conscientiousness and also with a greater level of wisdom and self awareness. So, this native has the ability to see these things manifesting problematically within the sphere of her career. And as a result of that, should she choose to stay in this career, she can start to create a life for herself surrounding her monetary promise that is different than what it currently is manifesting as. Who knows? Maybe she has a conversation with her boss. Maybe she says, I am valued more than this within the context of this job. I need a pay increase. And maybe that becomes a very big learning curve for her to actually have that conversation with that person. Maybe she chooses to switch careers. And in switching careers, she, now that she knows that her natal promise is to have a career that doesn't really pay as much as I need for it to pay in order for me to feel well taken care of within this lifetime, she can really be sure that the next job that she goes into, she puts her foot down and she says, hey, I've just come out of a very low paying environment that was unsustainable for me. I need certain financial securities. That means that this next career that I'm entering, if I come to work for your company, that you will have the ability to take care of me in the way that I deserve to be taken care of. Because wisdom is bliss. And if you exercise the wisdom that you're receiving right now, then you can manifest another career opportunity for yourself that's potentially going to be much better than the career opportunity that you currently find yourself in. So that's another thing that we see with this. We also see that the rule of the 12th house of self undoing and hidden enemies, it's in the 11th house of the money that I make from my career. And that can be an indication that the money that I make from my career is actively working against me. The money that I make from my career is actively manifesting as my hidden enemy. The money that I make from my career is actively in a state of destruction, and it doesn't actually have the ability to support me or to even make me feel optimistic. When we have the rule of the 12th house in our 11th house, it can usually have a dampening effect on our hopes and dreams and the fulfillment of our desires, and it can usually make us feel a little less optimistic than we would normally feel on a normal basis if we did not have such a malefic planet in our 11th house, which is actually supposed to be a really good house. So here we see this depreciation of the actual value of the money that she's able to make from her career by virtue of the Mars running amok within her 11th house of the money that she makes from her career. And she also sees the money that she makes from her career being represented by the Venus at 3 degrees of Scorpio, which is saying that that's another way in which we see that the money that she makes from her career may not necessarily sufficiently be able to attend to all of her life's needs and desires. Now, she herself is someone who's a workaholic. She works far too much, and she works far too much in ways that she probably doesn't even need to be working that hard to begin with. She has the ruler of the first house in the sixth house of stress and sickness, which says that she probably is readily taking on the role of stress and slavery within whatever sort of career opportunities she finds herself attracting to herself. And as a result of that, she's overworked, she's underpaid, and she doesn't actually feel as if she's in a field that has the ability to do that much more for her from the perspective of decreasing the level of stress that she holds on her shoulders within the realm of the career that she's currently doing. So, in that way, we see that that is also manifesting as a bit of a problem for her within this lifetime. So, you need to be mindful about the level of work that you're taking onto your shoulders. You need to be mindful that that work may not necessarily be justifiable based on the realities of what's going on within your actual salary situation. And as a result of that, you probably need to wheel and come again, as we say in Jamaica, which means give yourself another opportunity to take another stab at this career situation so that you can do something else that probably feels like it's more in alignment with who you are. And the next time around, really put your foot down as far as the specific realities of what you need in this lifetime from the perspective of your career and the garnering of financial security from that career. We also see the ruler of the first house in the quincunx relationship with Venus ruling the 11th house, which represents the money of her career. And the quincunx between the ruler of the first house and the Venus representing the 11th house is indicative of the fact that I don't like the money that I make from my career, and the money that I make from my career doesn't like me either. Whenever we have a quincunx relationship between two planets, it creates a very challenging set of circumstances regarding the houses that those planets rule. So we see the ruler of the ascendant in the quincunx relationship with Venus, ruler of the money from my career. I don't like my career's money. My career's money isn't really liking me as well. The two of us are in a relationship of animosity. I hate it here is essentially the story that we see manifesting between the L1, L11 quincunx. Now, when we take a look at her own money within this lifetime specifically, her money is signified by Saturn at 13 degrees Leo, 48 minutes in the sign of its detriment. Saturn in the sign of its detriment isn't necessarily much good for anyone, and it is saying that within this lifetime, the story of her monetary affects could be that that is manifesting as more of a challenging area for her. The story of money in general could be manifesting as a bit of a challenging area within this lifetime, and that's something that she will have to learn to either do better with in general personally from the perspective of her own relationship to money and spending and all of the things that are directly pertinent towards her financial life. And secondarily, this can also be an indication that money just represents a major learning curve for her. She has the rule of the second house and the ninth house. She might be working in international relations. She might be working in the tourism industry. She could also possibly be working within the education industry specifically, because very often, wherever we find the rule of the second house of money, is a place where we find ourselves making money within this lifetime. She also has the part of fortune in this chart at 25 degrees Aquarius, 46 minutes in the third house. And the third house is a house of early childhood education, so that can be a place where she possibly could make money in building foundational educational models. That could be something that she does very well in offering that sort of education. That can be another thing that she does very well. And in nurturing young people in general. She has Moon contra-parallel Jupiter, which we see on our declination table. She also has Mercury in a contra-parallel relationship with the Sun, which we see on the declination table. All of these things are quite good as far as working with young people are concerned. They could also be quite good in terms of nurturing people are concerned as a result of the Moon-Jupiter combination. It's a very good nurturing combination. And so, all in all, she has a very good chart from the perspective of some of the career possibilities that she can be specifically engaged in. And I think the larger reality of this is that, natally speaking, the monetary factor isn't necessarily the best as far as the career is concerned. So if you find yourself currently within a career that's fulfilling this part of your natal promise, then it is very appropriate for you to pick up and leave and try something else. And picking up and leaving and trying something else might be a part of what is known to you within this lifetime, because you have Uranus in the conjunction with the North Node, and you also have the North Node falling on your Venus Uranus midpoint. And so that can be indicative of the fact that you are accustomed to picking up and leaving. You know the value of leaving something behind, leaving people behind. You know the transience of relationships in general. That could be the transience of friendships, but that could also just be the transience of relationships. And so, as a person who's accustomed to that level of transience in terms of interpersonal relationships, then you should give yourself the freedom to pick up and leave, particularly because you realize that you're in a period where this career doesn't really have that much to give you much longer in general. However, this is exactly the sort of chaotic advice that you'd expect to hear when you have transiting Neptune transiting the ruler of your 10th house cusp. At the moment, we have Neptune at 25 degrees of Pisces, which means that the transiting Neptune is basically in a conjunction with the ruler of her 10th house cusp. So when that happens, you do hear diabolical messages from people like myself telling you to pick up and leave your career. We have the Neptune in an opposition to the ruler of her 10th house. What this is saying to us is that you are in a period or an epoch of time that is manifesting disappointment in your career. And that is kind of a built in factor of what's going on within your chart at this moment. You're in a period that's manifesting disappointment in your career, and it's a bit crazy. You also have Pluto that's about to ingress into Aquarius. And when Pluto ingresses into Aquarius, we're going to have the Pluto in a square relationship to the Venus, which is also ruling the money that you make from your career. So I think that based on what you're going through at this moment, I wouldn't be that surprised if you had a sixth house or a 12th house rising year within the solar return, because it kind of sounds like that. The career in this chart is the Saturn here at 1 degree of Pisces is not looking so well. So as far as the career situation is concerned, that's likely to continue to be the case. It doesn't really have the means to change its current trajectory. And as far as the money that you make from your career is concerned, that's represented by this Peregrine Jupiter retrograde, which is also kind of feeling as if even if there are promises made for you or made to you by your bosses or employees within the context of this year, as far as a pay increase is concerned, those promises might not actually be real, basically. So that's just something to be mindful of. So, from the perspective of the monetary piece, in terms of the career, the monetary piece still seems to be manifesting in a bit of a challenging way from this perspective. And I think that that is the majority of what needs to be said, because that was the core of your question in terms of this career. It doesn't necessarily seem as if that's going to be changing in a way that you would actually enjoy in the near future.
It's pretty sobering and a little bit confronting, simply because, as you mentioned, it should, when you look at Mercury, it should be, it's a career that I do really love, but it has proved to be incredibly sapping in terms of yeah, just financially, it's cost a lot for me to pursue this career. So I'm a film director and a screenwriter, and I, on paper, have a successful career, but in my bank account have a quite a detrimental career.
Okay.
And it's true, you're absolutely right in terms of hours of work, because in terms of hours of work, I probably work 60 plus hours a week on 3 separate projects and jobs most times. And if I work it out financially, it comes to less than $2 an hour. And yet I love it. So it's quite strange, but it is becoming increasingly unsustainable with the way the world is financially.
Well, I mean, I think that you probably already know this because it's your chart, but Neptune, when Neptune was discovered, they thought that Neptune was the planet that ruled the silver screen. And so, therefore, you're in the right profession, basically, because Neptune does have to do with capturing things in general. And the Neptune Venus combination, which you probably have as a midpoint or something, but the Neptune Venus combination has to do with capturing beauty in terms of making film and that sort of thing. But Neptune by itself is a wonderful combination for someone who has the ability to capture beauty as far as film is concerned. So you're in the right industry, you're probably working in the wrong locale as far as that industry is concerned. But as far as your natal promise is concerned, you're exactly where you need to be. If you've enjoyed today's show, then please remember to hit subscribe down below. I'm currently on a mission to get 12,000 subscribers across all platforms, which includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify by the end of November 2023. And it's a tall order, but I'm pretty sure we can do it because we make some really good astrological content here on the Oraculos Podcast. So please remember to hit subscribe down below, hit the notification bell so that you receive notifications of when we come out with these episodes on a daily basis. And please share the Oraculos Podcast with your other astrologically minded friends so that more and more people can know about the amazing work that we're doing over here on the Oraculos Podcast.